Okay, it's time to talk about the last of the graphing utilities we'll be using in Math of Finance. And you may not think of this as a graphing utility. You'll notice I've got Microsoft Excel sitting up here right now. It's a spreadsheet software, package, right? But you probably already know that you can use it to generate graphs. And as I mentioned in the last video, when it comes to the out-of-class projects you're going to be doing, Excel graphs are sort of the order of the day. So I wanted to kind of walk you through a couple of examples of how this ends up working out. So I'm going through the examples in the notes. So one of the big differences you're going to see with Excel as opposed to the graphing utilities from before, Desmos and a graphing calculator, is Excel, it doesn't really do like variables in quite the same sense that we've seen before. There may be a way to make it work like that, but that's beyond the scope of our class. So what we're going to need to do instead is kind of set up our functions or our formulas and turn them into tables of values. So the directions are pretty straightforward for what we're going to do here. So I'll kind of lay out what's going on with this first guy. We're given this r of x function, 28,000x minus 8x squared, and we want to graph it over a particular range. So I'm going to make a couple of tables here. So you'll see, or a couple of columns in the spreadsheet. So we have x and then r of x. All right, so first we need to set up our range of x values. It says we want to go from a 0 to 125. Now, you could laboriously type in like 0, 1, 2. Excel will actually automate the process for you a bit. I'm actually going to skip by 5s just for ease of reference. So we go to 0, we go to 5, and I could technically just keep skipping, 10, 15, you get the idea. But Excel will actually let you sort of automate the process. If you highlight the two cells like I have right here, you'll notice there's this little green box in the bottom right corner. If you grab hold of that, click it, and then drag, it'll actually automatically generate the values that you need. And it gives you even a little handy tooltip that tells you how far you've gone. So now I'm at 125, and huzzah, I only had to type in 2 things. So there we go, and it's covered all of our x values for us, which is kind of nice when you've got that much to work with. Now we need to put in the r of x values. Now, technically, yeah, you could calculate each of these things separately, but it'd be nice if the software would do that for you, right? And it will. To get Excel to do a calculation, if you've worked with Excel before, you'll know this. If you're wanting it to do any sort of arithmetic, you need to lead off your entry in that cell with an equal sign, so it knows it's supposed to do a calculation. Now, don't just type in the formula exactly as it's written. Like I said, Excel doesn't really understand formulas and variables. If you type in 28,000x, it's just going to complain, or it's going to think that this is like just a text string instead. So what we need to do, I've typed in the 28,000. Also, unlike Desmos and graphing calculators, Excel is really bad at implied multiplication, so note that I have put in the asterisk to indicate that I want to multiply this 28,000 by my x value. So now what I'm going to need to do from here is actually go click on the x value that corresponds to what I'm wanting to do. So click on that guy, and you'll notice it fills in the actual like cell entry. I'm not going to talk you through the row column, how it calculates these, but it's not going to be x, it's going to be A2 for this thing. All right, now I'm going to keep typing. Minus 8 times, I have an x again, right? Everywhere I see an x, you can just go back in and click on that cell. You could technically just type in the the label, the A2, but if you wanted to. For what it's worth, if you need an exponent like we do here with this square, note exponent is shift, as you say, that caret thing for making an exponent is shift 6 in our calculator or on our keyboard. So now I've got this guy typed in, I hit enter, and we should get 0 back, so that's a positive sign. Okay, now, once again, I'm not going to keep repeating that over and over again. Excel will automate this process for us. So I'm just going to highlight all of the cells down to 125. And I like to point out as well, when this comes up here in the top left corner, there's a thing labeled fill. And it will actually sort of fill down, and it will automatically adjust so you're always referencing the correct cell. So that's pretty handy, I think. So you're not, you don't have to keep manually adjusting or anything like that. All right, so now I've got my big old table of values. Now I can actually try to generate the graph, and I kind of wish I hadn't jumped all the way back up to the top. So now what I need to do, if you're following along with the directions, highlight the 2 columns. So I'm just going to grab everything right there. And now I want to come up to the Insert tab up here at the top that says Insert Charts. You may have used these before in other classes to generate pie charts or bar graphs or something like that. For our purposes, we're actually going to want what they call a scatter plot. So that's going to sort of plot each of these sets of values in one row as like a point in an XY plane. So that one just links them up without any connecting lines. It suggests doing this for this particular problem using a smooth curve. So that would be this fella right here. I do want to see the points. You could technically do it without the points, but I want to see them. So I'm going to click on that guy. Bang, he's right there. Now the problem is, I could technically move it back up to the top, but it's not strictly necessary. So here's my graph, and it sort of automatically picks out a scale from 0 to 140, and then 0 up to this thing up here. So you may want to play around with these values. It actually suggests adjusting the axes. So if you're wanting to adjust the range of x or y values on one of these, if you right-click on the actual axis, you'll notice it kind of puts a little box around the axes themselves, and it pops up a thing that says Format Axis. Over here along the side, now we've got sort of a range of values to work from, which is, kind of nice. So we only want to go up to 125. That dead space over there next to that last dot on the right is bothering us for some reason. So we do that and to readjust, and it kind of frames things up for us nicely. So we can do the same thing if we come over here and we click on. Oops, I missed the thing. I can't. There we go. We got the vertical axis now. That's what I was looking for. So let's see. Where do I get it? All right. I'm just going to start from scratch. This is bugging me. All right. Okay. So let's right-click on Format Axis there. So I never can remember which of the little headings it's underneath. So it suggests changing the bounds, and I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not quite sure why we do this. Is this from negative 400,000 to positive 300,000? We'll play along. So that's 4,000, 40,000, 400,000. Tab down, let's see here. Then I'll set the top to 300,000. I have no idea why we're doing this, because you'll notice now we can barely see any of the graph, but that way you can see what it's like to adjust both the horizontal and the vertical axes. All right, so real quick, let's take a look at the last example, but I'm going to set up a new Excel spreadsheet for it. So let's come here and click plus to create a new guy. I've always kind of personally, I don't like the default font, and I like it a little bit bigger, so I adjust. So I actually picked Trebuchet because I just find it fun to say the word. Anyway, so we've got something about per capita tax burden here. We've got T and X. So I'm just going to label my guys here X and T, and we want X is the number of years from 1960. So we're not just going to start by typing in 1960, because X is the number of years after 1960. So we're actually going to be starting this guy off with 0, because 1960 is 0 years after itself. And we want to go up to 2015. Well, subtracting 1960 away, that says 55. So I'm going to be able to reproduce my values the same way I did before. Start with 0 and 5, stretch down until we've got up to 55. There we go. All right, now I want to type in my formula. So this formula is equals, again, remember the equals at the start, 1.19 times, it says x, but we can't just type in x. We have to go click on the cell where our x value is stashed. So 1.19 x squared plus 34.61 times x again, but type in, as you say, click or type in A2. And then we have lastly plus 104.7. All right, double checking to make sure I have entered everything incorrectly. It looks like I have. And I will repeat my fill on this. Fill down. There we go. All right. So can I make that? Yeah, I don't want that. I didn't want that there. I'm not going to bother adjusting the graph axes on this one. All right, so now I've got these guys highlighted the way I want them. Well, there we go. Highlight, insert. I want to come over to chart. We'll do the scatter plot again, and we'll do the one with the smooth curve. You'll see this one is not a line, right? It's kind of, it's bending upward, so to speak. We'll talk about the type of function we're generating in this in this example and the one before later on in the course when we get to chapter 2. But for now, that's a sketch of the graph of this guy. And it asks if it's increasing or decreasing over these years, and then it says, what does that tell us about the tax burden? So if the graph is going up as we move from left to right, then it's increasing. It's growing as time goes on. And then, if it had been dropping, so we had it bending down this way, that would be a decreasing graph. And then in terms of what this tells us, that means that, the per capita tax burden has been going up as time goes on, right? So we started down, here, and then it has ratcheted up over time. All right, so that's how to generate graphs in Excel. So you'll find that handy come project time when you're asked to generate some plots for for the reports you're going to be drawing up. So that's it for now. In our next section, we're actually not going to be necessarily using these graphing utilities. We're kind of dropping back into algebra. I'm sorry if that's a bummer for you, but anyway, we'll see you next time.